Web development used to mean simple, static pages. Today, we are engineering massive, interactive, three-dimensional applications at breakneck speed. The tools we have right now offer incredible power, but to wield that power, you're expected to navigate an ecosystem that demands a huge breadth of knowledge. If you look up how to get started, you'll hit the standard 10-step roadmap. It tells you to master everything from basic HTML syntax all the way through advanced cloud deployment. This diagram maps those 10 steps against a strict constraint, the actual time it takes to learn them. This is a Gantt chart stretching across months of human effort. When you look at the first 4 steps, HTML through responsive design, they cluster tightly on the left. You make rapid, visible progress in a matter of weeks. But as you move into Git, React, and TypeScript, the timeline stretches out. The cognitive load spikes, and what took weeks suddenly demands months of trial and error. Then you hit the final steps: Next.js, automated testing, and deployment. The required commitment trails off into the distance. This is the long tail of enterprise-level engineering. Treating this entire list as a mandatory checklist is a trap. If you give equal weight to every step from day one, you will burn out in tutorial hell long before you ship a real product. Success in 2026 depends on calculating the exact depth you need for each tool, based on your specific career goals and actual time constraints. To make that calculation, we use this 2x2 quadrant chart. We compare cognitive input on the bottom axis against capability output on the vertical axis. For Phase 1, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and responsive design sit squarely in the low cognitive input, low to medium output zone. The mental effort here is straightforward. You memorize static syntax, learn how browsers structure documents, and write basic logic to move elements around the screen. In exchange for that effort, you get the ability to construct visually appealing websites that adapt to mobile screens and respond to clicks. The trade-off is that staying in this phase restricts you to basic freelance gigs. Worse, this specific tier of simple site creation is highly vulnerable to modern AI generation tools. Git and React land further up the grid, medium to high cognitive input, yielding high output. To get here, you have to abandon your comfortable vanilla JavaScript habits. You have to wire your brain for component-based architecture and learn how a single-page application handles data. The payoff is substantial. You can now architect high-traffic web applications while using professional version control to collaborate safely inside a larger engineering team. But the friction is severe. The learning curve for managing state across many components is steep, and the constant breaking changes cause a lot of beginners to simply walk away. Mastering the foundations gives you the ability to build a web page. Conquering Phase 2 makes you functionally employable on modern software teams. You just have to spend significantly more mental energy to get there. Looking at this same chart for Phase 3, TypeScript and Next.js push into the extreme corner, high cognitive input for extremely high output. The input requirement jumps again. You must start enforcing strict type definitions on all your data, and you must learn server-side rendering paradigms to process code before it ever reaches the browser. Doing this produces lightning-fast, highly SEO-optimized, and fiercely bug-resistant web applications. This is exactly what large enterprise companies demand. Yet the overhead is massive. You write heavy boilerplate code just to get a project running, making these tools complete overkill if you're just trying to spin up a quick prototype. Phase 4 brings testing and deployment into the high-input, medium-output quadrant. This requires dedicating substantial hours to writing code that exists entirely to test your other code, running isolated unit checks and end-to-end simulations. The result is absolute confidence. You know your application won't break when real users click things, and it is instantly accessible on a global network. The drawback is that there is zero visual reward. You are staring at terminal readouts, making it feel like tedious, invisible maintenance work. Cloud platforms like Vercel and Netlify have stripped a lot of the friction out of deployment, but writing solid tests remains a heavy, time-consuming investment. Even so, if your goal is to land a senior engineering role, avoiding testing is not an option. You have to do the heavy lifting. Pushing into this enterprise territory secures your long-term career. But if you try to tackle these advanced steps too early, you will drain your motivation long before you ever ship a working product. View this roadmap as a layered ecosystem, where your specific end goal determines exactly where you should step off the path. Here is a decision tree mapping how that works in practice. Different objectives require entirely different stopping points. Let's start with Path A, the hobbyist or designer route. This path stops deliberately after Step 4, Responsive Design. Stopping here maximizes your return on investment if your goal is building beautiful portfolios, static landing pages, or customizing Shopify and WordPress skins. If you fall into this group, avoid React and Next.js completely. Wait until you actively feel the pain of managing complex data in your simple projects before you introduce that friction. Then there is Path B, meant for the career optimizer. This route pushes straight through Step 8, Next.js, but intentionally bypasses rigorous testing. Reaching this specific node is the sweet spot right now. It gives you the modern framework skills you need to maximize your employability for junior and mid-level roles. You are deliberately trading off the rigor of a senior engineer's code. In exchange, you gain the speed necessary to rapidly build a portfolio that will actually get you hired. Keep this roadmap nearby, but use it as a reference guide to solve specific problems as they block your progress. Do not read it like a sequential textbook. Stop reading endless tutorials. Start actively typing, making mistakes, and letting your real projects dictate your next lesson. The cardinal rule of the 2026 ecosystem is simple: build immediately. Only learn a new tool when your current stack physically limits what you are trying to achieve. Approaching the roadmap as a menu of solutions allows you to bypass tutorial hell while optimizing your limited time for professional growth.